sliver.
Yeah.
So no fence other than a solid like plywood is
Yeah.
gonna block 100%,
Right,
but,
right.
Vinyl's gonna roll on the other side.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the motion?
Just one quick thought. Where you worked very hard to make sure you didn't tell them how to do it, do we want to remove the word chain link and just say a fence that blocks the light? And then, I mean, it's gonna be a chain link, but if he chooses to put up a vinyl fence or some other light blocking fence, are we trying to stop that block?
Well, he would be within his code to do that. He would meet this.
You would, no, but anyway, all I'm saying, in the motion, do we want to remove the word chain link and let him put up any light, including
A light
fence?
blocking fence.
The only
A light
motion I
blocking
had
fence.
is Terry.
That's what we want.
We want a light blocking fence.
And so I'm just saying, you know,
I don't think so, because somebody just mentioned plywood. We don't
Yeah,
want plywood
that's,
fence.
see, if we don't have a fence.
There you go.
We don't have a fence or fence,
fair enough, all right.
we don't want to, put wrecked cars on their sides.
A suggestion, fair enough. Good. I'm good.
We could have another car.
Graffiti, could be graffiti fence.
I mean, that's what I think that's what he's proposed, and I think that's what we've accommodated him with. So I think that that's reasonable to, if the planning commission agrees that that's what the intent was there. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so you'll need to relay that information back to Mike, and
Hey, thanks for having you guys. Good guys. You can-
Thanks.
we was hauling butt on this thing, and now we just stalled.
Nobody stole. We got through public comments really quick.
Okay, let me put away the code book. That takes us to item number 3, Highway 40 Corridor Preservation Agreement. This is just an update. It looks like the town of Independence will pull out of that agreement with us. And we're pushing forward with the state and the county and Heber City, trying to move that Highway 40 Corridor Preservation. The town of Independence doesn't agree with the intersections that we have. We're really not at a point where we can move our intersections. They're kind of where they are. The state of Utah has granted a variance. I don't know if that's the correct term. They've allowed us to have a intersection closer than their 1,320 foot spacing because of Mill Road and the situation at Center Creek. So both those roads could be lit future on the variance from what the UDOT standard is under the classification.
That's long enough for one oil tanker to stop between the lights without blocking the intersection.
If he stopped at the first light.
And smoking tires.
Don't need to worry about that, they don't stop.
Yeah.
What am I thinking?
They have a very-
And so we've had been in a lot of meetings and what is she for the town of Independence? Is she their planner or is she?
I don't know if she's their attorney, she's part of the council, but she does more, yeah.
Yeah, so she kind of wrote us out of the whole agreement, which set the mayor off. You know, we're set him off right out of agreement.
Without asking.
Well, then within an hour, she had a whole new agreement written and with us out of it, and it's like, that was a little presumptuous, and I tried to be polite, and then went to everybody else, and so she said, I'm sorry, and changed it back to the original wording, and first of all, she had no right to even write it, UDOT was writing it, and
Yeah.
she just took it upon herself to take care of her and us, and
Take control.
so it's back on track.
Is there a possibility when they start putting those lights in to reduce the speed slightly?
Well, they won't do that until there's enough, they have the whole traffic study to do that. So it'll be a different criteria with that. So that was just an update, because we haven't met again. The county is pushing to do that.
Oh, Jay, bite your.
Okay, item number 4, request for a zone change on Highway 40. Ryan, you have an update on?
We do have, it was the council we talked about approving that, right? I should let Mark give the update, but
So which property, 2950 South Highway 40? Is that,
We talked
Yeah,
about
2850, so it's the Quonset hut.
Okay, my agenda says 2950, so it's 2850?
Sorry, yeah, 2850 is
So
what's
it's
on the
Quonset
application. Sorry, I probably typed that wrong when I sent it over.
I fixed it.
The 8 and 9 are really close together on the phone.
Well, it's really easy to turn that into an 8 anyway.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Pretty big finger too, so.
So, the correct address is 28. So 28 is the right number. Sorry about that. Anyway, it's a application for a zone change from the RA5 to commercial for the, I guess we could call it the Quonset hut or that metal building barn that's on there on 2.5 acres, 3 acres. And so we've received that application and now go through the process.
Okay, so we'll be having a public hearing and going through the whole process as we move forward with this. So we'll be sending letters out, is that correct?
Yeah, so we received the application last week. I'm working on getting those, all the properties with the 500 feet identified.
Okay.
I ended up being out of the office, so it took me a little longer than I thought it would, sorry. But I will get that done this week,
Okay, I still haven't located that letter either.
and then we will be in a position to get those letters out to everybody.
Could I throw one little comment maybe in? Would we want to tell them that it has been under a, what do we call that?
Continued use.
A continued use, basically as commercial already? Is that that's my understanding, that it's not, it is zoned RA5, but it's been being used since
1960 something, like
Yeah.
earlier than that.
Before the
Before
town
that.
was, before the town, way back.
Yeah, I mean, like, the building that's on the property was built in 65, but the property was used for trucking, livestock, commercial, trucking business, I don't
That's
know,
built
before then, but a lot, years before that too. It's been on a continued use for many years, for 40, 50, 60 years.
Okay, so we'll be moving forward with that. We will be noticing, and we'll probably have a joint council and planning public hearing. So we'll do all the noticing at one time, and then we'll meet together, since we meet every time anyway together.
Would you like to do? Do you think that'll happen by March 6th?
No, because it takes 14-day notice for the public hearing.
So it'll be
Could be the March plan meeting.
April,
We're still
It'd be the March
14 days
plan.
out.
could be March 6th.
No, planning.
Planning, oh, gotcha.
Wednesday,
The
not
third Wednesday.
I'm on. She got, hello.
So we may be able to do that to planning.
Why can't we do it the 6th, Eric? 14 days, we've got more than that till March 6th.
Well, we haven't sent out the letters, and so the
To the
letters have to
neighbors,
go out.
Send them out.
Yeah,
and
and
get back.
and then the state law require us, well, actually, we're more stringent. State allows 10 days, our code says 14. So we are more stringent than the state code on that.
The baby to work.
So by the time we get the letters out,
If everything's ready,
Makes
makes
sense.
Planning or the March council?
planning.
but the March planning meeting would make sense.
Yeah, it's only a couple weeks later.
So we'll just move forward and see how far we can get on that.
What's today?
Is there any questions on that? Is there any, pretty much knows where we're headed there. Okay. Daniel Municipal Water and Storm Haven, we have as many of you probably know, we have a pipeline being installed up on Storm Haven. Daniel's Irrigation is piping that canal. They have gotten to the road. Did we issue?
We did issue it, and they completed the work today.
Okay, so they have crossed the road going into Storm Haven. We issued the cut permit outside of our zone that we normally do. We usually do between April and October are the cut dates, but there's some circumstances there that with the wet year it is, we may need that pipe in place when the runoff hits. So we went ahead and pushed through, and
Or it'll just cut the road on its own.
it may cut the road on its own.
Its own spillway.
And so we pushed through and issued that, and it sounds like they were on that. So we put some conditions on that they had to meet. Obviously, the contractor thought that was okay because they made the cut, so he's agreed to those conditions. Which is the Daniel Irrigation Piping. The water, Kim's not here, so we'll just skip over that one. Planning Department report. Some of you was to the other meeting and got a copy of the planning report. For those of you that did not, here is the planning report of things that the plan has been through the planning office in the month of February. It's the report, I'm sorry, it's the stuff been in January, it's the February report. Okay, so you all know what's been happening there. Okay. Has everybody, is there any questions on that before we move on? Do we have a chance to-
Can I make a public comment on that, Eric?
Yes.
If planning looks at that list of stuff, it's huge.
Great.
And I think that we ought to soon start looking at a more permanent or more of a position type of a planner than having somebody do this on top of their other job. I think we could save money from engineering, and I think we could do a better job for our residents. And it's something to consider, start thinking about.
I'd have to disagree with the better job for the residents, because I think they're doing a great job. But I
Yeah,
do
but
think
think-
that the town's growing enough that
Okay,
it might
disagree,
need a
that's fine.
full-time person.
Yeah, that's-
But the job is being done well.
I just make one more comment on that, that hourly wage that you saw broke down, John. I don't think we could touch it with a 1,000-foot pole, let alone a 10-foot pole or a 100-foot pole.
But that's something that the town might want to consider.
We're definitely gonna have, we're gonna get to that point for
The
sure.
last thing we should do as a town is abuse somebody. And when our town representatives go to meetings that other towns go to, and they're significantly underpaid and better than others in the room, we need to have some respect for that person and our town.
I agree with everything except for, I believe certainly they're underpaid, but I believe in some circumstances they're equally, if not better than a lot of the other planners that may be getting a heck of a lot more from a bigger municipality. But I agree.
Sure, understand, just start thinking about it, so I won't say.
Okay.
There's a lot on there.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on.
Do you have another job?
I did have.
How many fingers?
I have to support this play. Okay, did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
By the way, that's supposed to be 2017, not 16.
Okay.
I didn't get a copy of the minutes.
Oh,
Sorry. I looked for them today too. I'm like, where are their minutes?
I sent them out in the email.
One of those emails.
Okay.
Oh, I will find them.
I just couldn't.
Do we want to come back to that item, or do you want a motion to continue to our next meeting? We'll approve them in our next meeting?
Sure. I'll make a motion to continue the minutes to the next meeting.
Okay, a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second, because I did not see that.
Pam made the
I made the
motion.
motion.
Okay,
Pam?
I didn't.
Jay seconded that.
Move to the next meeting.
The minutes from
Yeah,
January.
So January minutes to,
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll continue that to our next meeting. Okay.
You're not finding it on your email?
That takes us to our continued combined meeting with the town council of update of 825 home occupation.
Yay.
Damn it, ready.
That's juicy.
So everybody saw there's plenty of information to keep you sleepy on a sleepless night.
And I apologize, I didn't get mine out quick enough for everyone to look at, so I just briefly wrote them up there on the board, trying to follow the general format that we've been working on for the last period of time, the home occupation one. And basically, I called it a code for businesses in RA 1, 5, and 14, and there's my purpose. And then 2 possible applications, one being the home occupation business, and then a second one, I called it a small family business, and just said what I said there.
Okay,
You
and
can't-
so you have that in electronic format?
I do.
Okay, super. So, what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna try and get the purpose. Because as we get the code all written, it's gonna change if the purpose changes. And so let's work on the purpose tonight and see if we can get this purpose down of what we're trying to do with this resolution that we'll be adding to our code or not adding to our code depending on where we end up. Now, as the email went around, did the council get a chance? Did you guys get these Gary Waite's thoughts, Kim Norris's thoughts? Did you ever get a copy of that?
I didn't get Q Norris's, but I got Gary's.
Okay.
And I would
two
like to add
copies,
some
pass
to that
this.
list if I can.
Don't
I'd
you
like to
guys
pass
print
out.
out a copy?
Have more of them.
Yeah, here's one. You need Gary's also?
Just in the interest of efficiency and organization, who will be chairing this meeting?
Right now?
Yeah,
Me,
this combined meeting?
yes.
You're the chair. Thank you.
I'm the chair. Assigned so by the mayor.
Awesome.
Can I pass out a sheet for you? to read?
You bet, yeah, you
Add
bet.
to my
I don't know
papers.
if you'll read it, so I'll just give you these guys.
You know I will. Sir, would you like to set a time?
I would, that's exactly where I was going.
Okay.
I would like to call the meeting adjourned at 9 o'clock.
Okay, what other items do we have on the agenda before we,
That's it,
that's it?
that's it.
Just a
I'm
motion to
not-
adjourn,
These
okay.
meetings sometimes go too far,
They do.
and I
I'm
think
less
that in order
involved
for
in
us
this
to
part,
be
so I
effective,
thought
we
I-
need to take a little verse,
should
do
sit
what
back
we
here
can,
and
or
entertain
none,
myself.
beat it to death.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
Motion to adjourn at 9 o'clock? Second. Have got a second over here. Any discussion on the motion?
John,
Get her done.
this is you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Everybody wants to go home at 9. Okay.
Now, can I make a second
You're taking up time.
comment? Yes, I am. In our last combined meeting, and with no disrespect to John, the meeting was started out by saying that, well, we don't need a purpose because we don't need this section. I would like to disagree with that. I think that a second, larger area, I don't know what to call it, than the home occupation as it is currently passed, a second larger opportunity is needed. There is many people already doing that in the town of Daniel, and I would like to go on record as saying I would like to see us proceed with a second area that's larger than the home occupation.
A second.
Category?
Category, second
Okay.
category.
Kind of like maybe what I had, small family business.
Whether we call it
Whatever
small
it's called.
commercial, home, you know, what was it you said? You called it a,
Small business has been put out there.
self-employed, but I don't agree with that term, but the second larger category.
Okay,
So we already have commercial, which we didn't really do anything to change. We also have passed home occupation on the very small end. My indication, what I'm trying to communicate is that there is something I believe is necessary in the middle.
Small independent business.
Small independent business,
second class home occupation.
whatever we name it, but it's something
Small
between
independent.
home occupation and commercial.
Yeah, okay,
Can I make a comment on that?
you bet.
If you turn to page 3 of that document I just gave you, I asked David Church, who's the general counsel for the Utah League of Cities and Towns, if he has ever seen code that speaks to that type of a thing. And this is directly what he wrote me, and I highlighted a few things in red. He says, I do not know of any residential codes that allow more than just simply home occupations with no employees outside storage. The problem I've seen with these types of uses is usually the outdoor storage of trucks, materials, and equipment. These activities have the perception of lowering property values for others in the zone. And we might think we're really smart guys, but if there's not any other towns, the General Council of Utah League of Cities and Towns knows that does this. Why are we doing
Okay. Super, thanks, John.
Yep.
Good point. Good point. Did you happen to have a chance to review that
That's just,
I did.
document that I sent out regarding home-based businesses in Maryland?
Small Business Association.
Small business.
But you gotta look at
study?
who the author of that is and their purpose.
Yes, but I just wanted,
No, yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you had a chance to
No,
review that.
I didn't get a
Okay.
copy of it.
I didn't get one either.
It should have come in your email.
Well,
It should have been
they
sent
were,
out.
they were in the
I
email.
sent it out, but Lynn said, tell everybody it's like 50 pages long, so they might want you just.
190.
Of course it is
How much,
50 pages
119, so that like this,
long.
so I sent that out
Very dug it out. Of course it's 50 pages
to the
long.
council and to the
Can you resend it,
commissioners. Yeah.
at least to me?
Since you
Well-
referenced it, could you give us the short version
I'll have
for
to get
those
it
of
from
us who
here.
haven't seen it?
Yeah.
Well, and it's a whole study, on home-based businesses and small business and how it relates to the birth of a business and how, which businesses have been started. It goes through which businesses have been started in a garage in a residential setting and where they're at now as they became birthed at a small independent place and grown to these multi-million-dollar. And so at some point,
They had to move.
yeah, they upgraded, and that's what they did.
And so what is that
Apple's an
point?
example.
Yeah, what's your point then?
So I guess without you guys reading the study, the point is that, well, I'm just gonna read it because.
Can I paraphrase some of it?
Sure, go ahead.
There were several sections in there, exactly what we had talked about, outbuildings, et cetera. And there are some home occupations that require all storage to be in an outbuilding. There are some that allow employees, and many employees. There are some that authorize much more than just inside of a dwelling, inside of a home. And I think that it's very clear that there are other towns and communities that have fought these same battles and how they resolve. In fact, there are some that don't allow any kind of landscaping because there's growing plants. I didn't read the whole thing, Eric, I didn't have time, but there's an awful lot there that rang really familiar to me, that they're the exact same problems that we face. And I was really glad that you found that and sent it out.
Yeah, and so I just had found that, and so just over 90% of the home-based businesses have no employees. So over 90% have no employees. This is 2004.
And I think we accommodate those with our existing code.
That's kind of what this said.
And that's why I'm saying, what are we trying to accomplish by expanding the code? Because I've looked at this and you look at fire code violations, you've got hazardous materials and fuel storage that could possibly be in violation. More than 110 gallons of fuel, you're in violation. More than 1,300 gallons of fuel, then you've got to have an emergency plan shared with the town. Any type of hazardous materials. There's fire sprinklers allowed in buildings that store vehicles. All these things that have to be considered.
Yeah, there's a midrid of issues. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. So I'm just,
So what I did is I went right to the middle of that, and I picked out the zoning, because that's what we're trying to do here. We're gonna see if the zoning fits what we're doing. And so to start the zoning, we have to have a purpose. There's no reason to build an entire code if we don't know what we're trying to do.
but I think we already have a purpose.
What is the purpose?
Go read the general plan. We put commercial in commercial areas and we put residential in residential areas. And that was the point of my comments. If we're gonna dilute the residential area, how are we gonna dilute the commercial area to accommodate that? It doesn't make sense. Either way.
Okay?
I would like to propose a purpose.
Okay?
And I would suggest that, yes, we do have the purpose of protecting the residential nature of the neighborhood, but at the same time, I don't think we can ignore the need for people to make a living. And I think that if we do so, that we will find ourselves rolled up in a ball and thrown away by entities larger than ourselves. So my suggestion is, whatever wording there exists to say we're going to protect the residential nature of our community, that's great, let's get that in there. But I would like to add specifically, the purpose of this category is to provide an opportunity for limited business activity. And then at that point, my suggestion would be that we make peace with home occupation and larger business activity in a residential area by perhaps the lot size. And I would suggest that the the mid-grade addendum that we're working on right now be restricted to the 5-acre or larger lots. And that home occupations be on less than 5-acre lots. So the purpose, I would say, is to allow for limited, big, in capitals, limited business activity. And how we define what those activities are going to be, I think, is what we're here for. But the purpose is to provide for limited business activities on residential lots of 5 acres or more.
Okay, that's a short purpose. Pam, do you want to read your purpose up there?
That was short?
Yeah, that was short.
My short purpose is, the purpose of this section is to detail the regulations for limited businesses in the town of Daniel. The goal is to preserve the residential character, which is well-maintained and cared for properties. Maintain the farming and rural environment with natural and irrigated vegetation.
Okay. Gary, did you have a purpose on your comment?
My purpose would be that we should maintain the integrity of our zoning.
Okay. Kim, I guess,
Kim had
did everybody get a chance to read? Did you get a copy of Kim's, John?
I didn't. I saw it mentioned, but I didn't get a copy.
We have an extra copy there. That's Kim. So the purpose on his, you can see there, is the preamble. The resolution is enacted to maintain the integrity of the RA1, RA5, P160 zones within the town residential areas. This resolution follows the town general plan and stops encroachment of commercial businesses within our residential zoning. It follows town codes pertaining to good neighbor policy and intends to notify existing violators, presenting them with a time frame for compliance. It will utilize and maintain all existing commercial zones and promote businesses within those areas. The resolution aims to allow fairness and the ability to ensure compliance. Okay, so that's his. Did anybody else write a purpose?
I have two other comments while
Okay.
dealing with the purpose.
Okay.
If you flip over the page in here, Gary found an interesting quote that comes from the Utah Property Rights Ombudsman's Office,
What pages are
What page?
the fourth one. And if you read there, it says, although a local government must respect a property owner's right to develop his property, the local government is also obligated to uphold and enforce its own ordinances. Municipal zoning authorities are bound by the terms and standards of applicable ordinances and are not at liberty to make land use decisions in irrigation. And to me, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're decreasing the value of my home, and I have research that shows that. And I don't know why we would want to do that. So along those lines, why couldn't we have these businesses apply for a special use or what do we call it? Not special use, but conditional use. Why couldn't they apply for a conditional use?
Just what Midway does.
Well, this is just Eric's conditional use talk, and I'm sure you've all had it before. Conditional uses, if you say, okay, Pam, you can have your landscape business, and we're gonna limit your cars, and we're gonna limit your hours of operation, and we're gonna limit, what else would we limit? Employees?
Whatever.
Okay, those 3 items, let's just go with those 3 items. That's a conditional use, you sign on, great, I'll do it. Now, she decides she wants a bunch of employees. She takes that conditional use out of the hands of the council, out of the hands of the planning commission, and goes to the Board of Adjustments. Every single condition can be waived on anything that you do on a conditional use. Conditional uses have their places, but you have to be very careful about how those uses are and how they're tied together and how they're administered. Because at any point, you could have somebody disgruntled on a conditional use and they can get that use. And she doesn't have to stop there. You know, the next stop after that is the court. And so the judge can waive that condition. Conditional uses are very hard to administer. And so that the conditional use has a spot, however, you have to be careful how you use them.
Yeah.
And I'll just say a little bit about the Board of Adjustments. So I was on the county for 12 years, the County Board of Adjustments. Eric is 100% right. If, you know, everything might be hunky-dory, you can tell 5 years and someone wants to challenge that, or excuse me, they take it to the Board of Adjustments, who may only have been met twice in
Yeah.
two or 3 years. They make a decision out of maybe lack of experience, but not trying, they're doing their job, but that conditional use could easily get cut away by a different group.
Yeah, and just every one, and then it runs with the land. So now you have a use that doesn't have that condition, it runs with the land. They sell that use to
Yeah,
somebody
I
else.
understand that. So let me just ask you guys that are proposing that we have this. Tell me how I can get over the idea that we're reducing the property values of our RA5 residents and we're making it possibly less safe and all of those things. Why do we want this?
To add to John's, we're going to be, if we do this, we're the only ones in the county that allow it. In fact, the only ones in the state that allow it. So are we drawing the flies to the manure pile? Everybody says, oh, we'll move to Daniel and do this. So are we gonna get disproportionate number of businesses till we're just one big commercial area? I think we run that risk.
And I definitely don't disagree with exactly what you said, and I think we've already experienced the risk that we're already on the loss side of it. And so I'm not advocating,
Look at the first page.
I'm not advocating expanding or not, I'm just
I
commenting
know,
on.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
that's one thing we need to be really careful of.
Well, and I think if we look here in the town, who has bought the houses?
Yeah.
What do we have?
But the reason those are the people who are buying the houses is because they can come and do what they want to do.
Which has driven your property values up.
No, it has not.
It
It has
has. Nobody else has
decreased.
bought those except for those
No,
guys that are in
it has
it.
decreased my property values because people who want a nice residential ag place will not come and buy my property anymore.
Oh, okay, but that's not, you're
That doesn't-
talking about one market.
Yeah, that doesn't
Not
mean the
the
entire
entire
market is
Somebody
down.
else will pay more because they
Okay,
can.
so-
No, that is not true. I have talked to, I have data to back this up, guys. I've talked to multiple realtors, and they have said your property has decreased $20,000 to $50,000, and there are fewer people who will be interested in your residence because of the zoning around it, the activities around it. It does not improve property values, and it does not increase people looking for your property.
Okay, thanks, John.
And I have data
Oh,
on that. So
okay.
if you guys have data, I'd love to hear it.
Okay,
Can I,
Amy?
this is from John's paper, David Church, General Counsel of Utilities and Cities and Towns. I do not know if they do actually lower property values, but you cannot fight the perception, and I feel like that's what we got is a perception here.
And I'd like to make one more comment.
okay.
If what Gary
Wait,
says is
I
true.
need to I wanna, she's really
Hold on, John.
I wanna make sure.
John, he's got the floor, hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If what Gary says is true, no disrespect, Gary, but if we're the only place that does that and people are flocking here, is that not something that drives the price up?
Not necessarily.
It may drive the price up in one range. And I agree with what you've said, is for people looking for this specific type, and if that's all that your realtors have looked for, yes, it goes down. But demand is not one fraction of the market, it is the entire market. And I agree with Eric, that having this kind of thing is actually a very large plus. There's a lot of people who are looking for places that they can have a comfortable place and not violate the law.
Well, he just wanted the other side of that, so I was just playing that, I'm not necessarily telling him. Okay, so, hold on just a second, Jay. John, you needed some clarification?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanna understand what she's saying, because she's
Okay.
probably got a really good point. Just restate what you said.
It's right in your paragraph.
Yes.
I
Right
am
there, the last
underlining your
sentence.
paragraph.
I know I read it. Help me understand what you're saying with that. I do not know if they actually lower property values, but you cannot fight the perception. So help me
So I understand that. You can't fight the
Is that all you're
perception.
saying is restate that?
We can't change what you think.
Yeah.
It's everybody's perception.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
your
Yeah.
perception,
So,
it's my
okay.
perception.
All right, we good, Jay?
Okay, so, I've given this just a lot of research. I actually read Eric's document, I've read everything that everybody's put in here. And I have listened kind of with growing fear to what I hear tonight. Because what I am feeling is that, yeah, it probably does increase our property values if we want to sell commercial. I don't want to live in a commercial zone. I don't want my property to be worth more as a commercial property. I want to live in Daniel, where I don't have traffic on my roads, where if my cat should choose to cross the street, he's not taking his life in his hands every minute of every day. So I have found myself doing probably what constitutes 180. And I really think, I'm kind of feeling that Kim has it right. And that it's a question of fulfilling our home occupation code, enforcing our code, slamming the door, which is what some of us business owners have said in our meetings, that just draw the line now. What's here is grandfathered. We just, and that was in '06, grandfathered, and just go with our home occupation and enforce it. And don't write more code, and don't include small businesses, because as I read all these codes and all this information, pretty much everything that people have said they want to do is allowed in our town. You can have a home office, that's a home occupation. You just can't bring all of your plumbing guys home and run them out of your backyard. And that's kind of what SBA said. When you reach that point where you're beyond the one truck and the one guy, you need to move. Your business has outgrown its residents and you need to move. So my idea, if I were going to propose a purpose, my purpose would be kind of the same as Gary's, is to go with our general plan and maintain the nature of our town. And it's rural and agricultural, not commercial, not business.
Okay, John?
So, plumber and carpenter and them.
That's just a guy that comes home.
One truck, he
That's
has
his
his
home.
trailer, and
He
he
brings
brings
it
stuff,
home.
and he goes drive off.
That's
to-
his home
to-
occupation. When he starts bringing home pallets of product and running all his guys out of his business, then he's outgrown his
That's
home
something else,
occupation.
yes.
Then he needs to move
Would a person with a truck and a trailer need a business license or home occupation license for that then?
That's where I get a little bit tied up in the code, because to me, he's not actually, it depends, if he has an office in his home and he's doing his office stuff out of his home for that business, then yeah. Otherwise, he's kind of doing business out of his truck or out of some other off-site premise. So that would have to be clarified for me. But I certainly don't think we need to allow him to have his business on his property. I mean, my husband can't bring his business home, that would be lovely, but it doesn't fit in a residential area. And that's where I want to live. I want to live in a subdivision. I'm not saying we need, homeowners associations,
I'm with you.
heaven forbid, but we do need to have the residential, rural, and I'm not into the whole don't park your bicycle on the lawn either. If my neighbor's kids want to bash derby cars together, fine with that. But if somebody's creating derby cars and selling them, then, I don't know if there's even a market for that, then I'd have a problem with that.
There he is.
I wish there was. It is not a money-making proposition, let me tell you.
To me, that's a hobby. That's like, Gary raising hay and me having chickens. It's like, we're not really making big money at it. That's just our rural agricultural.
You're making money?
No, I said we're not really making it.
Okay, so this is all great conversation.
There you go. So
And
I'm
we've tied
saying-
this all in, whether we need it, whether we don't. We don't have a purpose.
Well, we do, because we have the code written.
We don't have the purpose we've set out tonight to write.
Okay, so I've got one thing. I've seen two
So
here.
what are you
and
looking for a purpose?
I want to know what the purpose is of us writing this code. We say we don't want the code. That's not a purpose. We don't
Okay,
want it.
gotcha.
That's
I
not a
hear it.
purpose. That's an excuse my kid uses. I don't want it. We need a purpose if we're going to go down this road. So we've had some purposes read. This is all great conversation that will come up again as we work through the code. Whether we can have trucks, whether we can have, all that will tie in later. What we're trying to do here is build a purpose And so now, this is our third meeting, we don't have a purpose yet.
Well,
And
the
it's
reason we
looking
don't have
like
a
we got
purpose is
15, 14
Because
minutes.
we ought not to do it.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we're saying, is we want the
We're
purpose.
saying we don't need a purpose because we don't want
It's
to
on,
do it.
it's on 8/25/01.
I think
There's my
we're
purpose.
past saying we don't wanna do it.
No.
Correct.
Oh.
I think that we are gonna do this code and see if it fits in. If this doesn't fit in or into what we're gonna do here, then we need to look at our other home occupation, just like we said, and it has to be adjusted.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
We
it
agreed that
does.
we would do this in
We
that last,
said we would look at it.
We
We
came
did
up
not
with that
have
home
to do
occupation
anything.
based-
Well, we're not doing anything, but it has to be addressed. We cut that out and said, this is light. And actually, what you're gonna end up seeing, as I read through that, what's at the legislature, is everything that's in our home occupation right now will not be able to be regulated. Everything in there.
Okay, so I copied that, and that's part of this document, the latest version that I could find of the House bill that Eric's talking about. And I don't see that at all. I see it regulating what you need to have people apply for a license for, but it does not say anything about what you can control.
So you're
About what
saying
you
you're not gonna
regulate?
allow us?
About what you can require a license for, it says, but what you can come back and say you can have or not have, it says nothing.
I am not surprised at all, John, that you read something different than I do. Not at all.
I,
So, and I think that will happen as we go through all this.
okay,
So, what I would like to do tonight is get a purpose, still. And so, we've had some purposes read. Chip, did you see anything there that,
What I saw was a combination to start with. So when I came to this meeting this evening, I thought, okay, after I read through it, if I were to combine, I think, let me first state this, and I don't want to waste a minute, I'm trying to waste 1 minute.
okay, go ahead.
My opinion would be with John and Gary and Jay, we want residential. I do have a sliver of my personal, what my thought that we have to have something else there for a semi-driver to bring a semi home and some other issues. So I don't know if we can or can't, but there's a slice in my viewpoint that would accommodate some. I'm more on Kim's side, if not a little bit stricter. I like that. So back to the purpose. If I were to take Kim's and,
Did anybody else, before you add those together, did anybody else do a purpose? You got one here?
I've got one here.
Okay, so we do have one more, maybe you want to
Yeah,
tie into that?
I'm kind of combining, so let's hear.
Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead.
You want to
Should
read
we
it?
write them out there?
No, I just wanted to read it so we all get the feel of what,
You have a copy? You have a
Sorry?
copy for Kevin, you have a copy.
The purpose of this chapter is to provide an opportunity for homeowners to operate a small business within the operator's residence and property boundaries. Any home occupation shall not change the character of the home or the neighborhood. The business shall coexist with the existing uses without creating conflict with the neighbors.
okay, so there's a purpose.
I like it.
I think we can
Short,
You got it?
just chatting with Pam here, I think that if we combine the two that she and I brought up, I think that we've got something we could use, and that is to provide, let's see, the purpose of this section is to detail regulations for businesses in the town of Daniel. The goal is to preserve the residential character, which is well-maintained and cared-for properties, and provide for limited business activities on 5-acre or larger lots. And then what other details, like was just mentioned?
Can I disagree with the lot size? Because what you're doing with the larger lot is allowing them to put their business away from their house and closer to their neighbors. So I would almost say no.
And if you read through the information that Eric found in that SBA note, there are municipalities that require 100% of any activity to go on in an auxiliary building and not outside where it can impact the neighbors. I think there's ways that we can write this to where it doesn't impact people in a way that we don't want it to.
Kind of like I brought up, then why don't we allow me to build an auxiliary building that I can rent to people? That's a little business, that raises money. I think you're just opening a huge can of worms.
No, the can of worms is already open. What we're trying to do is contain it.
Okay, one more.
Okay.
Purpose, the specific intent of
Is this yours,
establishing, what's that?
is this yours? or-
Yeah, this is just something I put together today. The specific intent of establishing this code is to accommodate small businesses in a home occupation setting, which would facilitate self-employment on a small scale and small-scale startup operations by allowing primary residents an opportunity to establish revenue, security, economic base, while limiting the impact on neighboring properties and lifestyles. Also, to provide a service to self-employed residents that would allow them a potential that may be conducive to the economy and the town as a whole by providing services that residents require to maintain their properties within the town and surrounding areas. So that was another purpose. I thought, well, why are we doing this? So that's why I just threw that together. So now with all of these purposes we have,
I like 4 or 5 of them myself, for the purposes that we've heard.
yeah, we have a bunch of purposes, but we don't have anything. So let's work through it and get a purpose. And it may be that we get this all written and we don't want it. It might be that. As we work through here, I just see items poking up that maybe we can't get past. And if we can't get past, then that might be the answer. We're not gonna have it. But I think we need to run through it to see where we're at. And then when we get this one done, I got another code next, we'll start over.
The sign code?
The sign code, well, that's a little bit complicated.
And the third one.
Oh,
John will like that one though, it's got a lot of
I
math.
can deal with signs.
It's got a lot of math.
No signs.
28 pages, exactly.
But something to the effect of a limited activity, person, whether they have, whatever they're doing, but they've just got a truck and a trailer and they go off-site to do the actual work.
Well, and that's another whole point of this study, was that there is actually no revenue at his house. You come home in a truck, you go there and do your plumbing. You go there and there's a ton of that isn't, there's no base at the home. Well, the Internal Revenue Service says that's not a home-based business. Because you're doing off-site, your primary service is done off-site,
Okay, so do they need to?
not to complicate the issue.
No, I know what you
Do
mean.
they have to have a license within Daniel? They don't
There's
have
a
to worry
question
about it.
whether they need to or not, so.
And that's where I think this House bill is going, is that person probably doesn't need to be licensed in the town. That's what I got out of there, at least part of that.
So back to the purpose, the combination of, is it Brent?
Brent,
Brent and Pam and Tom created a pretty good idea about what this purpose would be all about, that we wanted to, the idea that it's a small business and it's not impacting. And then yours had a lot of words in it.
Got lost in yours, Eric, sorry.
Did you? Oh, sorry.
My main idea is just an
I'll just give you a
opportunity.
thought. Oh, I gotta trade John. John, I'll trade you for one of yours.
You won't even read it, so.
What do you mean I won't read it?
Can I just make one comment and then I'll shut up?
No, we don't want you
Only
to shut
if it's
up.
on
No,
purpose.
no, I'm so different than some of you guys.
No.
But in this code, I would just ask you to please prevent what has happened to me. When I bought my home, this was the situation. Code in place for no businesses. This is what I have now. All the red is businesses. With multiple trucks, multiple employees, and everything else we're talking about. That's what I live with now, guys. That's what I have.
so you're in conflict with the neighbors.
What's that?
That
I
there is
love my neighbors.
Conflict with the neighbors, no, but you have a conflict.
No, I don't. I don't have a conflict with any of them until I started getting into this lousy thing and finding out that I'm bankrolling them to some extent, and I live in this commercial. That gets me.
But if we get a purpose, and those don't fit.
shut up. You guys
no,
go
and if
for it.
those don't fit, which doesn't sound like some of them might, then we'll
Yep,
fix
go
it.
for it. You guys go for it. Please just keep that in mind.
Hey, John, for whatever it's worth to you, I've been right there myself too, with
Good.
the worst of the worst that was in.
And mine are the best of the best.
No, I'm talking about the after hours welding and banging and
Yeah.
diesel smoke. The middle of the night is the worst of the worst. I've been right there and I do understand what you're
And
saying.
mine are not that.
And we need to eliminate that. We need to come up with something that,
Gotta come up with a purpose to eliminate that.
You'll need that later.
where was it?
On the floor.
Oh,
I saw it fall
Okay, so
out.
Pam, can I get you to go over there and write this down as we combine these together? As we combine some of these things? So let's just go for it line by line and see what we come up
Maybe
with.
erase.
No, just go right underneath it. I don't think that none of that is eliminated. I think we're gonna refer to everything we have.
And I'm keeping in mind what you said, Eric, just like, I mean, we could go through this out when at the end and just say, you know, it's not gonna work. And
They got
so,
one truck and a trailer and.
you know, we've had meetings where people have felt uneasy about certain discussions, and I look at it as discussions.
Yeah,
You know, until we have that final meeting, it's gonna change a whole lot, and so I
I see where you're at too.
I think, bang on it.
okay.
Besides the ditch.
So purpose, here we go, what's the purpose?
And that's right.
Out of all these we got,
Detail the regulations for possible businesses in the town of Daniel.
okay, I think we need to be more restrictive and state that just businesses. I think that leaves the door open to,
Self-employed.
or
No,
small,
I'm not going
or
with
something of
self-employed.
size needs to be the purpose.
Hey Pam,
Because-
it's on that sheet, the combined, yours and mine.
So if we talk about the size, which is what we identified as the need, was the small, right? We're not talking about commercial, or they can go out commercial,
Yeah.
big commercial. So I think that's what we was looking at, was size is a huge issue.
You know, all the ones that I think that we've all kind of have shown interest in, certainly talks about, what you also talk about, Eric, would be primary residence. That's probably pretty important to have the primary residence.
I think that's vital, that the person
That
that's
they
running
live
the
there.
business lives in that house.
Yeah.
And not somebody else and use it.
And I actually said that over here, lives
Okay,
So
on
you're saying
property.
lives, but not necessarily owns.
I'm saying lives there. I wouldn't exclude somebody renting a house to be doing something. And so if they're living in the house, I believe that business should be allowed in the town.
It's almost like the landscaping, they've got an employee, something living in there.
That wouldn't
That
qualify.
morphed from what was
That would
said,
not
and so-
qualify.
Pam, I'd like to also have on there as a key point, to provide the opportunity to do business on a limited scale. And what you're saying is we're gonna, detail of the regulation. And not only are we gonna detail the regulation, but we are also with this ordinance, making sure that there remains the opportunity to make a living on your own property.
Well, and I like the way Brent said that it wasn't just within your residence, but it was,
On your property,
yeah, on your property.
within your property boundary.
That's it, within your property.
People need to be able to make a living and not feel like they're violating the law. Once we step across that line of violating the law, anything goes. It's all up for grabs. If we can keep it to where people are living the law, they're not so likely to get carried away and go on and on and on with it. And if we don't allow them the opportunity to do that, then it's all up for grabs. There's nothing to stop them. Well, I'm breaking this law, what's one more?
I think the purpose has to be clear and concise,
Yeah.
short, and then all the details will come later.
Over here, and
Yeah.
for example, and
But the important thing needs to be in that purpose, so that they
Okay.
know.
So
what we're doing
living in
with
the
this.
house, we think is important.
I think
We
that's
think
important,
it's
is everybody.
limited or small businesses.
But when you said living in the house, so you want to use those words rather than primary residence, or the same, is that the same to everybody?
Didn't Gary, weren't you leaning towards owning the house, Gary?
No, I was just clarifying what Eric was.
Primary was.
Okay.
the primary
Because I have
residence.
seen some where you have to own the house to do it, in some of the town codes.
And we can certainly look at that.
See, your
I
opening
wasn't
sentence says
suggesting-
exactly what I'm trying to say. Provide the opportunity for homeowners to operate a small business. And this would inherently, Eric, I think, be a smaller business than what could go on in a commercial zone.
Absolutely.
I think that this
Actually-
should be something in between the hairdresser who has people come in and does nails and nobody in the neighborhood knows what's going on with it. But it's not as, you know, it's not a Joe Gordon down in the commercial zone with, 500 earth movers. I think this is something that's in between and I think there is a real need for it.
Yeah, and I think we identified that there's a need for it because of what's happening, but
I really like your opening sentence. I really think that's a good one.
What is that one, we're read it again?
The purpose of this chapter is to provide an opportunity for homeowners to operate a small business within the operator's residence and property boundaries.
small business.
I think that's very concise.
So that moves up there.
I don't see the purpose of the boundaries. To operate a home business, then we establish the rules.
Well, because with our home occupation, it has to take place within the residence. And this
Right.
next click up that we're looking at writing a purpose for, we're going to
Encompasses.
allow them to utilize.
Yeah, you can't-
Right.
One.
Right, but I'm just saying, why add the extra words?
Because
'Cause-
we're talking about using a piece outside your house.
Possibly.
But
But
that
I'm
would
just
be,
saying, but that's kind of putting the rules in now. Instead of saying, the purpose is to let people have a small business on at their residence.
And then we'd outline all the rules after
Yeah.
the fact.
Anything within the property or within the home.
Well, yeah, I think it says within the property boundaries as opposed to having a piece of property that has nothing to do with it, and that's where you're gonna go and run your business from.
well, this differentiates because the 82501 purpose states within the operator's residence. And the addition of
That was the problem.
Within the
when we
residence.
met the first time.
or on the property. And then you can bring in the external building that they're allowed to
It's 9.
utilize.
I also, looking at.
Can we make a motion, can we continue for 10 minutes?
No,
No.
We had a motion.
we had a motion, we
So
voted.
even on the business, I'd almost change that to say sole proprietorship.
Say what?
Sole
Yeah.
proprietorship.
Proprietor.
Because if somebody's coming in looking for a business, they know they're not gonna start a business, it has to be sole proprietorship. It's a smaller class of business.
Ah.
So what does that?
One-man operations.
Well, you got a lot of partnerships there.
Well, let's see, wait
You
a
do.
minute, wait a minute. Yeah, that eliminates subchapter S, that eliminates
Yeah.
LLC.
Yeah.
No,
It does.
No, it does, yeah, sole proprietor is not subchapter S.
No, Justin.
And I'm not
Make
sure
sure
that's a
that
bad
resonates.
thing. That's the size of a business that needs to be in the commercial.
Well, a subchapter S is a family business. That's what it was designed for. Been around a long time.
We did make progress.
we got started up there. I'm
See,
afraid
a
we
lot
just
of
keep going around in
chapters
circles.
That was the original.
Okay, we already had the motion to adjourn, we're out of here.
Did we?
Yeah, they made that before we started.
So we're trying to get all these out again and get them organized again.
Craziness, isn't it?
Can you take a picture of that and keep it? I did get pictures.
Thank you.